Thank you so much for your question. I think it's a really important question to ask and something that most of us would definitely relate to at some point in our work lives. It's really difficult, not just in work, but even in your personal life, to belong to an environment where you really feel like you just don't fit. One thing that really comes to mind as I read your question is a very common theory that's been applied to organizations, but even to situations outside of organizations about what you can do to deal with a dissatisfying situation. It's called the exit, voice, and loyalty model. And it basically describes that if you're in an environment where you feel satisfied, you're happy, and your needs are being met, you're going to be loyal to whatever that environment is. So, for example, if I'm in an organization and I'm really happy and I'm really satisfied, I'm going to be loyal and committed to my organization. If instead, that organization or that environment, something about it is making me unhappy, I'm feeling dissatisfied, there are a few different ways that I can potentially deal with that situation. One way is just to be completely passive, not do anything. But the downsides of that particular course of action is that when you become passive, you gradually become more and more resentful over time. And what this happens is when people feel dissatisfied within an organization and they're not really doing anything about it, they gradually become less and less engaged. Their performance starts to suffer. They want to take more sick days. And overall, it's just not a very good situation. Another way to deal with this is what we call voice, which is when you actually try and change the situation. So you actually voice your grievances, whether it's to your department or to your team or to your organization as a whole, with the intention that you're trying to bring about change. And the benefits of this is that you can actually potentially change the situation that is causing you dissatisfaction in the first place. But there are a few preconditions that need to be in place. For individuals to be able to actually voice their concerns, they actually need to be in an environment where they feel some level of psychological safety. If I'm really dissatisfied with something that's happening in my team, I need to be able to feel safe in voicing my grievances. And if I do have that, I'm more likely to be able to say something about why I'm unhappy in the first place. So if you're in a situation where you're at work and something is making you unhappy or something is not really aligned with your values, one thing to consider is what would happen if I actually bring up why I'm struggling with this particular issue. And if it's a situation where you feel like you can say something, it might be best to bring that situation up just because it might be on other people's minds as well. If you are in a situation where you can encourage your team to regularly undertake debriefs and reflections about what's going well and what's not going so well, this can be a part of your team's rituals as well. And, it might create long-lasting change for your team. If you're in a situation where you're not feeling psychologically safe or you've brought up your concerns a few times, one thing to consider is actually what you ended up doing, which is actually leaving the organization or leaving the environment. And, it actually works. And it might be surprising to hear myself say that, but it is something that is recommended when you're in a situation where you're dissatisfied, you've tried to bring about change hasn't occurred, because that actually might lead to a better outcome for you yourself in the long term and might be something that would preserve your well-being in the long run. Thank you.
First of all, I'm sorry that you're working in an environment that doesn't align with your values. If you've already identified that your environment isn't a good fit and you're not ready to leave just yet, I would ask yourself, what is a part of your work environment that you can control and what isn't worth trying to change? Now, I say this because we can only change what's within our control, so it's not worth ruminating on what we can't. Now, if that resonates with you, consider these three things. One, make a plan to address one big thing about your situation that will change it for the better. So if that's going to leadership and voicing your concern or banding together with other people that are like-minded to voice your leadership, to voice your concerns together to leadership. That would be great. Maybe they just don't know what y'all see. Or maybe you can find an influencer in the company and you can influence them to influence others. Or maybe you can just brainstorm with them a different plan. Assuming that you can do that, number 2 is to imagine this plan working. Okay, it's done. Success. Do you feel better? If not, there may be an underlying concern that you're not addressing, and I challenge you to think really hard about what outcome you're actually seeking. And then number 3, surround yourself with safe spaces and people. Regardless of how successful you're going to be, the process is going to be hard. The journey is going to be emotionally difficult. And your number 1 priority by being in a place that's already somewhat toxic for you is to protect yourself by creating the positive space that you can. I hope you're able to improve your sphere of influence, but if not, now is a great time to figure out what your deal breakers are while trying to explore another work environment that might be a better fit. Good luck.